Hello, welcome back to another video. This one is going to be a little bit different, than the previous two. I am going to debate AI. I'm going to debate AI, and I am going to defend my positions while AI tries to attack my positions. So here we go. We're just gonna enter the prompt here, or we're gonna go debate me on abortion. I am pro-life. Attack my stance. I should probably clarify, I am pro-life. I am pro-life and do not think abortion is acceptable in any circumstance other than the life of the mother. Ooh, I misspelled circumstance. Other than the life of the mother. Attack my stance. Okay, let's see what it spits out here. Alright, I'll challenge your stance respectfully and directly. As in a debate, you're pro-life and believe abortion is only acceptable when the life of the mother is in danger. Let me push back from a pro-choice perspective. Bodily autonomy is fundamental. You argue that abortion is morally wrong except to save the mother's life, but this stance fails to respect a woman's bodily autonomy, a principle deeply rooted in legal, medical, and ethical standards. No one can be forced to donate a kidney, even to save another person's life, so why would a woman be legally compelled to use her body to sustain a pregnancy she doesn't want? Even if we accept that a fetus has moral worth, forcing someone to carry it to term amounts to compelled physical labor and risk over 9 months, something we don't require of anyone else in any other context. Okay, that's a great counterpoint, but what about the baby's bodily autonomy? Science agrees, almost consensusly. It is a consensus, but only a few very radical political scientists disagree with this, but life does begin at conception, and anybody who has any sort of intellectual honesty believes that as well. So if life does begin at conception, that means that that baby is alive from the point of conception onward. Therefore, backtrack. If that baby is alive, what species is that baby? Well, it's got a completely unique set of human DNA. Therefore, it is a human being. Because it is a human being, therefore it should get human rights. And the most sacred and fundamental of all human rights is the right to life. So therefore, we should not murder the baby because of this. A woman's bodily autonomy, we're not killing the woman in an abortion, are we? We're not forcing the woman to stay alive. We are making sure that the baby, who cannot defend itself, has the chance to live. This is a common argument that a lot of people try and use, but when you actually dig into it, it does not hold any water. It says here that no one can be forced to donate a kidney. Well, a kidney is not its own unique person. So why should a woman be legally compelled to use her body to sustain a pregnancy she doesn't want? Because that's a human life that you're murdering, not just, donating a kidney. They're completely different. All humans have the right to life, and no matter if you want to keep that person around in your life or not, doesn't mean you have the right to murder them. From it says here, even if we accept that a fetus has moral worth, forcing someone to carry it to term amounts to compelled physical labor and risk over 9 months. Well, taking care of a child also amounts to compelled physical labor and risk. So we don't say that you can murder your newborn baby or your toddler. That that's a completely absurd stance. And the only difference between a newborn baby and a baby inside the womb is location and stage of development. Just because they are more grown does not mean that they have a higher moral worth. Just because I'm 23 years old does not mean I have a higher moral worth than somebody who is 3 years old. It does not work like that. So argument 1, kaput. Argument 2, your exception proves the rule. If abortion is justifiable when the mother's life is at risk, then you're implicitly accepting that a fetus's right to life can be overridden. That weakens the argument that the fetus has an inviolable, I've never heard that word before, right to life. I guess it can't be violated, is that? So why stop at the life of the mother? What about her mental health? Her long-term physical health? Her ability to survive childbirth without trauma? Drawing the line at life-threatening circumstances is arbitrary and dismisses the complexity of individual situations. Now, some OBGYNs don't even consider the life of the mother to be an actual circumstance. If that was the circumstance, just perform a C-section. C-sections are quicker, safer, and everybody gets to live. Abortions are very dangerous. Women die all the time. Not all the time, but women die getting abortions from infections and various different injuries that they can receive during an abortion. But this is saying just because... so my defense of aborting a baby because the mother is dying is because that mother is... If the only situation is you either get to save the mother or you only get to save the baby, I choose the mother. That is not an easy decision to make, but that's the only decision that I'd be okay with, because that mother has a more significant part to play in the society of the future than potentially a dead baby otherwise. It says, what about her mental health, her long-term physical health? Well, she shouldn't have gotten pregnant. 99% of abortions are the cause of consensual sex, and the abortion is out of convenience, not out of this is a rapist baby, or they were whatever, something like that. So I don't think it weakens the argument, because some people don't even think, some medical experts don't even think that this situation is possible. But a fetus's right to life is inviolable, except in the instance where it's an either A or B decision. And it's like the trolley question, right? There's no actual right answer. It's just a simple, it's an easier legislation to pass, is basically my justification for that. Argument 3, you ignore rape, incest, and fetal anomalies. Let's take the case of a 12-year-old girl raped by a relative. Are you saying she should be legally forced to carry the pregnancy to term because the fetus is innocent? Yes. That stance prioritizes the fetus over an actual child who is raped. Not necessarily. It treats her as a vessel rather than a person. That's just not true. Or what about severe fetal abnormalities? Cases where the fetus has no brain or will die moments after birth. Forcing a woman to carry such a pregnancy can be psychologically devastating and medically risky. Okay, that second point is a lot better than the first point. The first point, however, just because a wrong was done to somebody innocent does not mean another wrong is going to make that right. There are thousands of cases, millions of cases, I'm sure, of documented abortion regret. People who get abortions and are psychologically devastated because of it. The stance does not prioritize the fetus because the child who was raped, well, that is a terrible tragedy. There is nothing that can be done to unrape that child. Now, murdering that baby has not been done yet. So there is something that we can do to not murder that child, and that's not murder that child, right? The baby in the womb. Just because, some 12-year-old girl gets raped and is pregnant does not mean that killing the baby is going to make her have a better life. And that fetus is still a unique human person and deserves a right to life. If I have an ultrasound of a baby conceived in a loving relationship and a baby conceived in rape, you are not able to tell me the difference, and therefore you have no ability to morally distinguish the two. Argument 4, outlawing abortion doesn't stop it, just makes it dangerous. Just because, we can legalize... I don't even need to read this. This is a stupid argument. Just because, we don't legalize fentanyl, right? We don't legalize meth. We don't legalize, hard drugs. that we don't legalize murder, right? Murder is very dangerous, and so we should legalize it to make it less dangerous. That's the stupidest argument I've ever heard. That doesn't even warrant a read-through. Challenge. You say abortion is murder in all cases except to save the mother's life, but would you prosecute women who get abortions as murderers? No, I would not, because a lot of them have been propagandized and brainwashed into thinking that they actually don't have a living, unique human being in their womb. It's just a clump of cells. A lot of them believe that. Now, the doctors I would prosecute because they fully know well. If this gets outlawed and a mother does go to get abortions, then I would prosecute that woman. But as of right now, absolutely not. The logic of your position suggests you should, but most pro-lifers stop short of that, revealing an inconsistency in the argument. Your move. How will you respond? All right, so let's go back to argument 1. Bodily autonomy is fundamental. Response to argument 1. Oh my gosh. Argument 1. Response to argument 1. What about the baby's bodily autonomy? The first and most important human right is the right to life. The baby, it is a medical consensus that life begins at conception. The baby is a unique human and therefore deserves human rights. All right. Oh, shoot. I thought that was gonna, whoops. Yes, the fetus is a distinct human organism, but that doesn't automatically give it the legal or moral right to use another person's body to survive. What? Imagine this scenario. Someone is dying of kidney failure and you are the only compatible donor. Even if that person will die without your kidney, you cannot be forced legally or ethically to donate. Your right to bodily autonomy protects you even when someone else's life is at stake. By your logic, the fetus's right to life trumps the pregnant person's autonomy. But in no other case do we allow one person's right to life to override another's bodily autonomy so completely. So why the exception here? The exception... Oh, I forgot the C. Exception is because that woman (99% of the time) chose to have sex and risk pregnancy. 99% of all abortions come from consensual sex. Because of this, the woman has the obligation to reap what she sows. Pregnancy is not a terrible thing, and there are many resources to help her through it. Murder is wrong, no matter the size of the person or how dependent they are. On another to survive. A newborn is completely dependent on its mother for survival. Why is the mother charged with murder if she kills the newborn? All right, counterpoint 1. Consent to sex is not consent to pregnancy. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Are you kidding me? That's stupid. When you choose to have sex, you choose to possibly get pregnant. That's just what happens. Saying that she chose to have sex, so she chose the risk of pregnancy. Yes, it's like saying someone who drives accepts the risk of car accident. Yes! What are you talking about? And if they get hit, they're not allowed to go to the hospital because they knew the risk. What? Sex is not a contract for parenthood. Yes, it is. We allow people to manage the consequences of risk all the time, wearing seatbelts, buying insurance, getting surgery. In the case of pregnancy, managing the consequences may include abortion. Also, by your logic, anyone who takes a risk that might cause another person to be harmed should be forced to carry all consequences, even if that requires sacrificing their own body. That's an extreme standard. We don't apply it elsewhere in society. Counterpoint 2. Obligation to a fetus is not like obligation to a newborn. Yes, it is. This is where your newborn analogy breaks down. Yes, a newborn is dependent, but not physically attached to someone else's body. That doesn't matter. A newborn can be adopted, cared for by others. The mother can walk away and the baby will live. That's not true of a fetus. You're demanding that a pregnant person use their body, organs, blood, immune system, and physical endurance to sustain another life against their will. That's a unique kind of obligation, and it doesn't exist once the child is born. Once the baby is out, bodily autonomy returns. So we protect newborns because their survival doesn't require violating anyone else's body. Pregnancy is fundamentally different. Counterpoint 3. Murder is murder oversimplifies moral complexity. You said murder is murder, but we treat killing very differently based on context. We recognize justified killing in self-defense, in war, and medical emergencies. We even distinguish manslaughter, negligent homicide, and justifiable homicide. Abortion isn't casual killing. It's often the result of a serious moral, medical, and personal circumstances. Forcing someone to carry an unwanted pregnancy, even if they took the risk, ignores the complexity of real life: poverty, abuse, trauma, medical danger, and simple unpreparedness. Just because someone's going to be poor doesn't mean you should kill them. You also mentioned plenty of resources for pregnant people, but in reality, access to those resources is deeply unequal. Not true. Churches everywhere would be more than willing. I guarantee you. Adoption may seem like a simple alternative, but pregnancy itself comes with massive physical, financial, and psychological burdens that last long after birth. That's just ignoring reality. There are plenty of resources, pregnancy wellness centers, plenty of pro-life organizations who will completely fund your pregnancy. My challenge back to you, let's take a married woman, already with 3 kids, who becomes pregnant due to birth control failure. She is financially maxed out, mentally fragile, that doesn't matter, and her doctor says the pregnancy will likely be high risk due to uterine complications, but not quite life-threatening. Should she be legally forced to carry the pregnancy anyway? Yes, even if it breaks her financially, physically, and emotionally. Where do you draw the moral line between responsibility and coercion? Because it sounds like you're arguing that once a woman gets pregnant, even accidentally, she loses her right to bodily autonomy for 9 months. Is that really just? Yes, she should be legally forced to carry the baby. Just you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. If you aren't in the position to be pregnant, don't have sex. Ooh, I got him thinking. Here we go. Is it broken? Did I break it? Whoa, okay, here we go. Alright, you're being consistent, and I'll give you credit for that. You're not making exceptions for rape, poverty, or health issues short of death. You're standing on a strict moral principle. Sex comes with moral responsibility, and pregnancy is the natural consequence. That's a hardline pro-life position, and you're not dodging its implications. But let me continue challenging it. Counterpoint 1. This turns pregnancy into punishment, not protection of life. Pregnancy is beautiful. It's not a punishment. You're framing play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Makes it sound like pregnancy is punishment for sex, not a responsibility. Going against your own will is the punishment, not the pregnancy itself. Not a responsibility rooted in care for life. But you can't have it both ways. If you believe life is sacred and the fetus deserves protection, then you should approach pregnancy with compassion and support, not a consequence someone deserves for their actions. What are you talking about? If it's about moral retribution for sex, that's not pro-life, it's punitive. No, this guy is it's completely taking my argument out of its root. That sounds more like controlling people's behavior through forced reproduction, not protecting innocent life. So you're saying your argument sounds like this. That's not an actual argument. You're essentially saying if you don't want to be pregnant, don't have sex. Yes, but sex is not a crime. It's not a crime. Okay, very good. It's a normal part of human life, and in modern society, it doesn't always have to be for reproduction. But when you have sex, you willfully accept the risk that you might get pregnant, or you might get somebody pregnant. That's the way that the world works. That's the way that sex works. You can't have sex and be like, that person's never going to get pregnant. I'm never going to get pregnant. That's just not how it works. Counterpoint 2. The logic only ever applies to women. I think this is just going to go on for a long time, so this will probably be the last one. Counterpoint 2. This logic only ever applies to women. Let's be honest. This kind of reasoning, you've made your bed, lie in it, only applies to people who can get pregnant. You're saying that if someone takes a known risk, that's mothers, by the way, women, and it results in a dependent life, they should be forced by law to sacrifice their body for 9 months. Yes, this standard isn't applied to men. No shit. I mean, I'm sorry for my language, but what kind of argument is this? That's not equality, that's not fairness, that's reproductive coercion. Life's not fair. Men can't get pregnant. That's just reality, so we have to operate within reality. That's a really terrible argument. Counterpoint 3, people do try to avoid pregnancy and still get pregnant. Just because you try, you still had sex, right? At the end of the day, you still had sex, and there is no Just because you tried your hardest not to get pregnant does not mean that you didn't still have sex. So you didn't actually try your hardest. Final thought, let's say a man causes a car crash and that person he hit needs a liver transplant to live. The man is a perfect match should he be forced by law to donate part of his liver to save that person's life. If not, then why is a woman legally obligated to sacrifice her body to sustain a fetus? If the answer is because she had sex, then the logic isn't about protecting life, it's about controlling consequences. That's not moral consistency, that's moral retribution. Not true, as we discussed earlier. So here's the real question. Are you pro-life or are you just anti-abortion? Because real pro-life ethics would require empathy, nuance, and shared responsibility, not just saying you made your choice, suffer for it. Alright, so the man should not be forced. The man should not be forced. This is different from the pregnancy/abortion situation because there is a unique human life that, when left to its natural processes, will live. The car crash example, when left to its natural processes, the man will die. The choice to actively kill is different than letting nature take its course. All right. This is a strong refinement of your position. You're drawing a moral distinction between killing and letting die, and grounding your view in what you see as the natural progression of pregnancy as opposed to an external interference like abortion. You're saying pregnancy, if left alone, results in a living child. Abortion is an active interruption, killing a life. That's categorically different than simply choosing not to save somebody. Absolutely. Fair. That's a more sophisticated claim than simply life begins at conception, but I still think this distinction falls apart under scrutiny. Counterpoint 1. Pregnancy isn't letting nature take its course. It's enforced. What are you talking about? It's enforced use of a body? Let's take a closer look at your natural processes argument, dude. Yes, pregnancy can proceed naturally, but only because one person's body is being used involuntarily. That's not true. The body will do everything in its power to keep that baby alive. Very voluntarily, might I add. It's the brain or that person's dreams or wants that is the only involuntary part. If the pregnant person withdraws support via abortion, the fetus dies, not because it's not withdrawing support, it's literally poisoning it or pulling it limb from limb. Not because it was killed in some violent external sense, but because it was dependent. That's not true. So when you say let nature take its course, you're actually saying let nature take its course with full legal enforcement compelling another person to provide 24/7 high-risk bodily, it's not, most of the time, not high-risk, bodily support for 9 months, regardless of the cost to them. There's nothing natural about a legal system forcing a person to sustain another life. Counterpoint 2, letting die versus killing is murkier than you suggest. No, it's not. In moral philosophy and law, a distinction between killing and letting die does exist, but it isn't absolute. For example, a parent who fails to feed their child can be charged with negligent homicide or manslaughter. Why? Because they had a unique obligation to that dependent life. Like a baby in your womb? A doctor who removes life support from a patient with consent is not considered a killer, even though the action directly causes death. So, is abortion more like removing life support, or more like intentionally killing? Way more like intentionally killing. That depends on how you view bodily autonomy. If the fetus cannot survive without the pregnant person's involuntary support, then removing that support looks much more like withdrawing life support than like stabbing someone in cold blood. Counterpoint 3, your argument treats women as a means, not an end. What? This is the most ethically troubling part. You're saying that once conception occurs, the pregnant person becomes morally and legally obligated to let a process unfold inside her body that she cannot legally stop, even if it damages her physically, emotionally, financially, and psychologically. Yes, you had sex. You took the risk. Now, just because the consequences of your actions are in your face doesn't mean you get to throw them out. That means you're treating her not as a full moral agent, but as a means to an end, a vessel. And here's the tension in your position. You grant full moral personhood to a fertilized egg, but none of the functional rights of bodily autonomy to the person carrying it, because they gave away that right when they chose to have sex. You're assigning absolute moral weight to the potential life and zero moral consideration to the lived, conscious, autonomous person. That baby's alive. That baby will become conscious, and that baby will become autonomous if left to its natural state. That's not moral consistency. That's erasure of the pregnant person. All right, I'm not doing this challenging it anymore, just because that's the end. But again, this was good. This was good. Going against a machine that is trained, and I think I held my own. I think I really did hold my own. Let me know how you think I did. But if you want to see more videos like this, let me know. But I'm going to keep making videos. I want to make videos kind of just clarifying my entire perspective on a whole bunch of political issues. Who knows how long that'll be. But, or I might just break it up into different videos. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.